This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Thank you for listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, where we discuss all the news in the world of sports. My name is Ben.
And I'm Anthony.
And we are back here on a Wednesday. I'm still feeling a little under the weather, so I am very happy that you are here, buddy, because you might have to do a little more talking than me today.
Totally
because I'm
fine.
just kind of like going with the flow of things and going with the punches. But
Right.
nevertheless, I am here. It's a little early for me still. I woke up kind of feeling dead a little bit, but... Anyways, since I've seen you, first time now since Christmas. Good Christmas? Good holidays?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Christmas is always a fun day for me because basically I have 4 different sides of my family. Like I got my mom's side, my dad's side, and then 2 sides for my stepdad.
Oh,
so
you're just kind of a busy
it's just
man.
everything all around because he's got like step parents too. So like it's just like on Christmas Day, it's like 4 different sides. Like I wake up with my mom, I go to my uncle's house, I go to 2 different sides of grandparents. Whole day is going around, but the present's still very nice. And the food from 4 different places, one of which being Italian, got some Portuguese mix in there. Whew, the food is good.
Okay, I'm a big Portuguese guy. I've always wanted to go there. My girlfriend's gone there a few times now, and it's like literally her favorite place. So I'm like, I need to make sure I go there before I die. But so I'm with you, buddy. That's obviously great. I had a good one myself. So now we are back in the flow of things.
Yep.
Gonna be talking a few things here on the show today. Talking some basketball and the show with a lot of trending news. But we have to lead off the show with the firing of a head coach. Comes a little early for me. I would have imagined it would have come on Black Monday, this upcoming Monday after the NFL season is over. But Rex Ryan is out as head coach of the Buffalo Bills after almost 2 complete seasons. Obviously just a week left in the season now.
Right.
He is out. They will be promoting Anthony Lynn. He's their offensive coordinator right now. He took over for Greg Roman since week 3 when he got fired.
Right.
So Rex Ryan is out as well as his brother Rob Ryan. No real surprise there. But Rex Ryan is out. Is that a surprise to you?
I mean, a little bit. Not exactly just in the case that, we kind of heard this all year, right? Like you said, earlier on in the year, the offensive coordinator got fired, and having him and his brother there all year, it was kind of one of those things where like they basically had to win, right? Because if they didn't win, then they were going to blame it on both of them. And even, 2-3 weeks ago, they were talking about these reports that they might fire him, but they didn't know. And then this game against Miami they had last week, where that was kind of the final nail in the coffin, especially with him trying to call a timeout, like kind of ice the kicker, but that didn't work. He called it too late. Like those things look kind of embarrassing, and if you're already kind of on the hot seat, the owner's basically going to be like, yeah, let's just let him go. And you're right, like Black Monday would have made a little bit more sense just because, okay, you're going to fire him with 1 week left in the season. I don't know really what that does. Like, yeah, you're going to give the, new guy like a game to do what? Like, if they win, congratulations for you. Like, it just seems kind of strange in that aspect. But, he only lasted 2 years, and they had a guy recently come out, the defensive end for the team, Ledger Douzable, not sure how to say his name. But anyways, he went on Twitter, basically confused about what happened, talked about, they only gave him 2 years, we let him down as players, and he's a guy who was with him in New York and with him in Buffalo, so he kind of, has some loyalties to him more than just, being a player. Like he was kind of a journeyman that kind of followed Rex, and Rex probably helped him with his career, so and you always heard with Rex that he was kind of one of those, like not players coach necessarily, but like rah-rah guy that like, if they were doing well, they loved him, and if they were kind of struggling, maybe didn't hit as hard, but he's probably, I don't know, I don't think he's probably going to get a head coaching job next year. He'll probably be in the booth, and that'll be a lot of fun because he seems like a guy that'll have a lot of opinions, on one of those, Sunday countdown shows, be it on CBS or ESPN or wherever.
Yeah, I think that Ryan's firing, it doesn't really come as a surprise to me. I would have imagined it would come next Monday, personally.
Yeah.
I think it's really, like you said, the game against Miami was kind of the nail in the coffin. Had a lead, they tied it up late, and then Miami kicks the field goal, a 55-yarder, to go into overtime. Jay Ajayi, a big 50-yard run to set up the game-winning field goal. Buffalo only has 10 guys on the field for that play.
Right.
So it's like, well, there's another issue with your defense. Your defense got gashed by Le'Veon Bell for almost 300 yards against Pittsburgh a few weeks back. You had a nice lead against Oakland, then you give up 29 points in a row and lose that game. So everything that his defense was doing was not typical Rex Ryan great defensive schemes. This is a good roster. When he came in there 2 years ago, they were 9-7, one of the top defenses in the league. Then you bring in Rex Ryan, and it's like, wow, this is going to propel them forward. It never really worked out. The offense had some playmakers. LaShawn McCoy had a monster year. Tyrod Taylor wasn't great, but he wasn't terrible.
Right.
So, I mean, I get it. Like, I think they kind of need – this is how the NFL is really going. For the most part, every head coach that comes in now is young, and they're, for the most part, offensive-minded. Think about all the young coaches that came in this year. You have Doug Peterson, offensive coach. The only one that, with the real exception of that, is Jack Del Rio.
Yeah.
So everyone's kind of switching to this offensive mindset. Rex Ryan, a more defensive guy. I don't think he'll be a head coach really ever again. I could see him being a coordinator. I think he still has capability of being a good defensive coordinator. Maybe he goes into broadcasting. Who knows? But as far as a head coach, I think, honestly, we've seen the last of Rex Ryan as a head coach. I mean, he's hasn't really proven himself in New York, for at least except for the first couple of years he was there with Mark Sanchez.
Right.
And now with Buffalo. And he's one of those guys, like you mentioned, everything's going great. He's a great coach. Everything's going bad. He's not so much a great coach. The one thing I will give Rex Ryan credit for is he's never been that guy to blame the players. He's always been the guy to say, oh, it's on me. Like, I need to make sure I'm a better coach. I need to get the team prepared more. Like, our goal is this. He's never been the guy that has definitely disrespected his players, and that's great. But, I mean, I just don't think it's really going to work out as a head coach. And firing him now, I guess you have to say to yourself, okay, this happened in Jacksonville as well last week. They got a win, so I don't know if that's in their mindset, or they are promoting Anthony Lynn, who's been an offensive coordinator and an assistant for a really long time now with multiple teams. So maybe he's their guy, and they know that already, so they might as well make him the interim, give him one game to really analyze how things go, and then promote him to the head coach position. Or they can kind of just get started a week early. Who really knows? Plus, you have next week, you're going to see some more coaches fired. I wouldn't be surprised if Mike McCoy's gone in San Diego. You have a couple other possibilities where coaches could be fired. So it'll be interesting to see. And then the other thing with Buffalo is going into their Week 17 game against the New York Jets, they will be benching starting quarterback Tyrod Taylor for E.J. Manuel. Tyrod Taylor is due a huge lump sum of about $30 million if he is on the active roster come April. So I think that has something to do with it. Obviously, if he is injured, then they, of course, have to pay him and can't get rid of him. Is he the starting quarterback for the future? They gave him a contract extension, but it's really broken down where they can kind of void it out if they get rid of him before April. So I think him getting benched really has to do with them still analyzing if he's their guy or not and making sure that he's healthy.
Yeah, so a couple things with all that. Yeah. So with Tyrod Taylor, you said the $30 million, all that basically means is he's not going to be on the roster because the thing about, the contract extension, but it's one of those, like, remember, how long was it, like 6-7 years ago, something like that with Donovan McNabb, when he got that, like, super, like, front-loaded money. It was like, oh, look, the contract extension. Not really. And, it was structured in a case where they wanted to get rid of him, that's fine. And, if you're going to pay $30 million to a guy that you don't have the utmost confidence in, it makes sense that you would cut him and just, E.J. Manuel is not going to be the quarterback going forward. Otherwise, he would have been already, and it would have been Tyrod Taylor. But you look at it, I think they're the 11th right now in the draft, the Buffalo Bills. So that's a case where maybe you want to trade up and get a quarterback, or maybe you just kind of wait a second and you get a quarterback. If you can maybe drop down to a top 10 pick, get one right there. So that's probably what they would do, I would assume. Tyrod Taylor, he hasn't been terrible necessarily. He hasn't been as good as, maybe the elites. Maybe he's not a top 10 quarterback, but, middle of the pack, not terrible. He'll find a job somewhere else, maybe wherever Rex Ryan ends up becoming a coordinator for if he doesn't just sit out for a year. But as far as Rex Ryan goes, you talked about his defense and giving up the Jay Ajayi. So he gave up two of the 3 200-yard rushing games to Jay Ajayi, because he had 3 this year. 2 of them were against Rex Ryan, and that Le'Veon Bell 236-yard game, I think it was against Buffalo. So you give up those 3, and I think they're 28th right now as far as, rushing defense. add all those things up, and it makes sense. You know, you talked about Jacksonville firing Gus Bradley and they got a win, but at least with Gus Bradley, he had about 4 years there, so where he kind of, you know, could see if he was good or bad or whatever else like that, and they kind of realized at a certain point this wasn't going to get any better. With Rex Ryan, yeah, he's the guy who, you know, will never blame the players, which the players probably love because he's basically the human meat shield. Kind of what, you know, back in the day, coaches like Jimmy Johnson would do stuff like that for his players whenever they got in trouble and stuff like that. They would kind of just say, like, okay, that's fine, just put it on me. That way you guys can just kind of do whatever you want to and you don't have to worry about getting yelled at because, honestly, so the Bills haven't been a good team this year, obviously, but we've never really yelled at, be it Tyrod Taylor or LaShawn McCoy or Sammy Watkins or anybody else like that. It's always been Rex Ryan, which is kind of a nice thing for the players to feel. Now going forward, you know, if the Bills cut Tyrod Taylor, Manuel, maybe he's a backup, maybe they cut him too. They go in, they try and get a quarterback with a, you know, top 10 pick. Maybe they try and go after Tony Romo, get someone like that to kind of, you know, stabilize the offense. So they still do have Sammy Watkins and LaShawn McCoy, and if you add a decent quarterback to that mix, that's not a bad offense.
No, you have definitely the three top things: top receiver, running back, and quarterback. With me, I think the Bills kind of shot themselves in the foot when they give Tyrod Taylor that extension they gave him,
right?
Because they're kind of basing it all on that big lump sum, that $30 million guarantee. And he hasn't been terrible. I mean, look at his stats this year: 3,000 yards, 17 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He also adds some elements in the running game. But to me, he's nothing more than a game manager.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to really cash him out like that, you're cashing him out like a top-paid quarterback, like he's an elite franchise quarterback. To me, he's really not that guy. But in my eyes, where they kind of shot themselves in the foot this year is that if you look toward the draft, to me, there's really no one that gets me excited. Deshaun Watson from Clemson doesn't really get me excited. Deshaun Kaiser, from Notre Dame doesn't get me excited. I think his name is Rabitsky from North Carolina.
Right.
He's probably projected as a first-rounder because a lot of teams do need quarterbacks. And we saw with Jared Goff and we saw with Carson Wentz, the demand for a franchise quarterback is definitely the top priority in probably all of sports, let alone the NFL. So it's definitely there, and I think they are kind of forced to pay Taylor now because to me, I don't see really any better option.
Yeah, there's not really a better option. Like I said, Romo, but that's kind of one of those things that every team that doesn't have a good quarterback can go after him if the Cowboys don't decide to keep him. And, yeah, the options aren't that great. I mean, to be fair, you know, we didn't think the options were that great at quarterback coming into this draft because Jared Goff and Carson Wentz have looked okay, and it's the ones that have been lower in the draft that have looked better, like a Dak Prescott. So, you know, who knows what's actually in the draft. But, you know, with this thing with Tyrod Taylor, you know, the money he got, you know, they'll just kind of defer it or they'll do whatever else. They'll make it so that way, you know, he gets whatever's guaranteed, but everything else, they're just not going to allow him to do it. And if you looked at how the Buffalo Bills kind of started off, they looked, you know, through about 6 weeks of the season, you know, they were 4-2. It was looking nice. Rex Ryan looked like a good coach. And then after that, lost to the Dolphins, Patriots, Seahawks. So up and down year. Tyrod Taylor, you know, like you said, 3,000 yards and, you know, almost a 3-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. He's like a solid enough quarterback. Is he one's going to win you Super Bowl? Probably not. But he could, you know, if you have a really good defense, he could be a guy that just kind of gets you along and, you know, doesn't screw it up for you kind of thing.
Definitely. So anyways, Rex Ryan is out. Anthony Lynn will take over at least for one game on an interim basis against the Jets. E.J. Manuel will be starting for Tyrod Taylor. Really, to me, just a precaution that they do not get him injured because then they will be forced to pay him and they can still kind of weigh their options here now. So anyways, we'll take our first break on the show. After the show, we'll talk National Basketball Association news. Russell Westbrook messing around last night with another triple-double. James Harden with a big night for Houston, but there were some on-the-court antics that maybe led to some scuffles outside out in the locker rooms. We'll talk about that and more right after the break at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back into the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Last night, Russell Westbrook, as I mentioned, messes around yet again with a triple-double. 29 points, 11 assists, and here's the big one, 17 rebounds for the point guard in their 106-94 victory over the Miami Heat. Westbrook, for the calendar year now, with 30 triple-doubles. That's the second most all-time, only behind Oscar Robertson. His 15th triple-double of the season so far. The Thunder not doing too bad either, 20-12 through 32 games. Not a bad record. So, are they really serious? Like, I know Westbrook's serious, but look what he's doing with last night. Andre Robertson starts, Steven Adams starts, Domantas Sabonis, and Anthony Morrow. Like, he's literally carrying this team completely. Like, Enes Kanter chips in with 19 last night on the bench, so that's not too bad, but this is literally the Russell Westbrook show. Can they really withstand this all year? Like, how much of a threat could they be?
Okay, that depends what you ask as far as, like, can they do it for a whole season? Like, as far as the regular season goes? Yeah, they can absolutely do it for the regular season because their record right now basically gives them 50 wins, 50-plus wins for a season, which, you know, considering they lost, you know, a top 2-3 player in the league in Kevin Durant, you know, that's really, really, really good. But playoffs is a little bit different. You know, you basically have defenses designed to shut down one guy to where in the regular season they don't really have that. But I could totally see Westbrook just going just full, you know, freak beast mode and just basically saying, all right, that's fine. I'm going to put this team on my back for the whole year because he's averaging 24 field goals a game. The closest is Oladipo with 14. And then after that, no one has 10 or more. He's basically the guy that gets everybody else involved. Like you talked about right now, he's averaging a triple-double, and last night he had 17 rebounds. Like, he is my favorite player to watch, period, end of story. Like, Steph Curry's really fun to watch if he loses his mind. Same thing with with Klay Thompson if they get hot for a little bit. And LeBron James is the best player in the league. But Westbrook is, like, the dude seems like he's never tired. And back 5-6 years ago when he was, you know, just kind of getting into the league, it was him and Derrick Rose who were both kind of those free point guards who were just like super, super, super athletic. And Rose got hurt, tore his knee up a couple of times. Now he's not the same dude. Westbrook's the same guy. Like, he's just, like, I remember hearing stories when I was young about, like, Michael Jordan, how he was just kind of, it didn't matter what happened. He always had some kind of, like, slight, even if it was just, like, the smallest of slights just to get him motivated for a game. Like, if someone said, like, you know, oh, you had a good game last night. You got 20 points. It's like, what? I didn't get 25? I'm going to get 25. Like, just weird things. It's like, wait, what? Okay. That he would get mad at. And it seems like Westbrook's in that same vein to where he just has to have some kind of just anger about him. Just like I'm going to do this. I don't care. I'm going to get a triple-double. Like, I don't think he actually cares about the triple-double, but I think his team, like, actually needs him to get it. Because, like they have these stats where it's just like, if he gets a triple-double, they're basically a 79% winning percentage. Without that triple-double, it's 47%. Overall, it's still 61%, so it's still really good. But when he gets those triple-doubles, like you said, 15 this year and 30 throughout the whole calendar year, he's basically willing his team by himself to win the game because without him, I mean, Oladipo has been on the Magic forever, and they were garbage. Kanter was on the Jazz forever, and they were garbage. Like, he was, you know, with a lot of other players who, yeah, maybe put up good stats on bad teams, but they're not exactly good players. The best one's probably Steven Adams, and he's not a scorer by any stretch. He's just one that catches lobs or gets dunks at the basket. So he's got to be the guy. He's got to be the guy that rebounds, outlets the ball, controls it, does all that type of stuff. And, I mean, he seems fully capable for, like I said, at least 82 games. Like, maybe in the playoffs, let's say they get like a 4th seed or something like that. Maybe he gets through the first round, but then in the second round, if they have to play like the Warriors, then maybe he gets knocked out. But, I mean, whatever about that, that's fine. Just enjoy right now the fact that he might be the first dude since Oscar Robertson in the 60s to average a triple-double for the season while also being 30 points, 10 rebounds, and 10 assists.
To me, I think Westbrook honestly cares about the triple-doubles. Like, he seems like, not going to hate on him, he seems like one of those guys that kind of got a big ego.
Sure.
It's kind of like a me thing.
Well, I mean, to be fair, if you make it to like the NBA or NFL or Major League Baseball, like ego kind of helps.
It does, and I feel like Westbrook's one of those guys that alone can't win a championship. Like with this Thunder team, he can't win a championship.
Sure.
That's why he signed the contract extension, yeah, but he can always opt out of it. So he has next year after the next year. So I think he's one of those guys that's like, hey, if you don't build something around me the next couple of years, like I'm out of here.
Right.
Like I'm gone. You know, I'm gonna have my options. And for me, I think the triple doubles is important to him. I don't think the Thunder necessarily need him to get a triple double, like not necessarily rebounding wise. He helps by chipping in. He had 17 last night, which is crazy. But if he gets the points and assists, if he can go for like 25 points, 12 assists, I think that's all they really need. This team is still good, and they lost the number 2 player in the world.
Right.
Like, if any other team had that happen, they would not be nearly where the Thunder are. And it's all because of Westbrook. That's why he's going to win the MVP in my eyes.
Oh,
he's
yeah.
just literally carrying this team on his back night in and night out.
As long as he continues and plays the whole season, he's going to get it. Like, that seems like a certainty at this point. Even if he only goes, like, 25 points, 8 rebounds, and, like, 9 assists. Like, even if he doesn't get that triple-double, like, if he continues, like, with 80% of this pace, he's going to get it.
Yeah, there's no way. I don't think he'll necessarily average triple-double. I think he'll slow down. Withstanding that every single night, night in and night out, it's got to really tear on your body.
Right.
I think it'll be the rebounds that probably drop. The points and assists will be there. He's just shooting every single time he goes down the floor, and if he's not, then he's passing it. So, I mean, he'll get the points and assists. The rebounds is just what I think is going to drop. But it's just interesting to say, like, this guy is literally just carrying his team left and right. He almost had his triple-double last night at halftime. He was only 2 rebounds shy. He had 12 points, 10 assists, and 8 boards at the half. He almost got that at halftime. Like, that literally never happens. You know what I mean? The guy's just incredible. I don't know what else there is to say about him. I hope they really build something around him. I'm glad he stayed in OKC, at least for the time being.
Right.
He can really try and sort of gain some of that luster they had the last few years since Durant left now. So it's good for him. It's good for the city. I hope they really just keep going on. In other news, the Houston Rockets with a big 123-107 win last night over the Dallas Mavericks. Dallas are absolutely terrible. They're 9-23.
Right.
Houston 24-9, very, very good. James Harden 34 points and 11 assists since he has taken over as the point guard now of the team under Mike D'Antoni in this offensive scheme. He's really just evolved even more into such a great player. It's really just the defense to me that's kind of holding him back now. James Harden as a distributor has been absolutely fantastic. Last night, though, in the win for Houston, kind of some problems on the court featuring Trevor Ariza for the Rockets and the Mavericks center Zala Medri. So according to sources, Medri during the game between the third and fourth quarter was making some really bad comments about Ariza's family, his wife, his children. This actually led to Ariza getting his second technical foul of the game, which ejected him from the game. And it didn't just stop there. So after the ejection, Ariza actually approached the Dallas Mavericks locker room with a few of his teammates to confront Medri, who obviously did not want any part of that and did not even go out there. So not really good things there. Darren Williams tried to go out and try and calm down Ariza, which did not really work out. But Medri was denying that he had said anything about Ariza. But, I mean, why would Trevor Ariza and some of his teammates go all this way for something that didn't happen? Like, it just doesn't really make sense. I think something definitely happened, and it's kind of unfortunate that it did. But we've seen these incidents happen before. Think about Carmelo Anthony
and Garnett.
And Kevin Garnett.
Yep.
I mean, they were about to fight outside the locker room. He met him at his car and everything. This didn't really escalate to that sort of standard, but it's still something that's really disrespectful and unprofessional in my eyes.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things, like he said, like, this has happened, not often, but this has happened before. And the general rule with just not basketball, but just sports in general is like, yeah, you want to trash talk, that's totally fine. Talk about my game, talk about how I'm doing, talk about all this stuff, like, that's fine. Just don't ever bring family into it. And if that's what he actually did, that's definitely, like, over the line. And I get why Ariza, wanted to basically, like, talk to him or whatever you want to say about it after the game. He brought, Beverly, James Harden, and Eric Gordon with him to basically figure it out. And Darren Williams tried to go over and, like, calm him down. But, once you kind of step into that kind of realm where it's just like, you hit the family level, it's going to enrage the players, and it's going to basically take it to a whole different level. And, Measure can say, like, I didn't say anything. Okay, well, you said something. Like, him getting that mad didn't come out of nothing, right? And
exactly.
Like, you're not going to do that after he basically says, like, oh, you suck, right? Something like that. That's not how that's going to play. Like, they've heard that their whole lives. They're fine with that, but they haven't heard their whole lives about something like with their wife or kids. Like, that's something that's, like, a totally different level. And not justified, but, like, I get it. Like, I understand that that's going to totally enrage you, and you're basically going to want to, like, talk to the guy and, like, hey, why, what happened? Like, why did you do this? Like, maybe not fight, but, like, at least get in his face and talk about it. And a bunch of technical fouls were issued, a bunch of ejections and everything else like that. And, this will probably spill over to the next game that they play. Basically, because Measure's not even, like, that big of a player, so he'll probably get a CMP coach or DNP coach decision kind of thing. But, this will definitely be talked about the next time that they play. I saw the stat that basically they, with the Mavericks, 3 times this year they've had a bunch of technical fouls in the games. They had one against the Kings. They had one with this game here and a game other than that. And like I said, the Mavericks are a really bad team this year. They basically tried to throw a lot of their money at Harrison Barnes. That didn't work. Dirk Nowitzki is starting to look like an old player now after being in the league for almost 20 years. And, they're just a team that's kind of transitioning right now because they always did the thing where they got the, like, 1-year players, whether it was Samuel Dalembert or they tried to bring back Tyson Chandler for a second, or they brought in Monte or someone like that. They always tried to bring in these kind of like Band-Aids that were working for a year, and now it's all kind of falling apart. They're a bad team. Now they have this. Meanwhile, the Houston Rockets, they got the best of both worlds, right? They got James Harden, who doesn't care at all about defense, and Mike D'Antoni, who doesn't care at all about defense. And they're just going to run, and they're going to have a lot of fun. They're going to score a lot of points. And if they need to play defense every now and then, all right, we'll try that. We'll see how that goes.
How good can this Rockets team be? Like, do we think...
Obviously,
I think of them, and I think about the Suns with
sure,
Steve Nash
right.
and Amari
yeah.
Stoudemire. They do have Capella, who is injured, and that's a big loss. He's kind of been that guy with pick and roll, just slash to the basket, get some dunks, some putbacks, play defense. Kind of like that Amari Stoudemire role back in the day. How good can this team be? Do we think their ceiling is like 3rd in the West? Like, could they really challenge the Warriors, the Spurs, kind of like the Thunder did last year? Or do they kind of just fit in that mold where it's like the Warriors are here, the Spurs are a little below them, and there's kind of a big drop-off to Houston, who's decent but not going to really challenge?
So the the Warriors are the best, right? The team is stacked. They're the best team in the West. Fine, you're not going to beat them. And you talked about the Suns with the Rockets, so you kind of look at how the team is structured right now. They had Steve Nash, who really good point guard, could get assists, could score, shoot, do all that kind of stuff. Okay, that's James Harden. You had the defensive stopper kind of guy in Sean Marion. Okay, that's Trevor Ariza. You had the kind of defensive, putback guy, stuff like that with Amari Stoudemire. Okay, that can be Capella. You get the shooters on the team, be it Raja Bell or who else was on that team. I'm trying to think of that team back in the day. But you had like shooters right on that team, right? That's Ryan Anderson kind of thing. That's also Trevor Ariza a little bit too. You have these people on the team that basically allows them to spread the ball. You got a little bit of a defensive guy, Nene Hilario. You got Corey Brewer, who can get you some points. Like, you have a solid enough team because, like I said, they're going to score a lot of points. And like I said, the Warriors are the number 1 team. That's fine. But what the Houston Rockets basically did was they took the discounted version of the Warriors, right? The Warriors are the best three-point shooter in the league. No one's close to that. But at least with the Rockets, that's what they do also. They love to shoot threes. That's kind of their game. They had 32 last night. I think they set a record against the Kings where they had like 40 or 50 of them. They just decide when they get there, like, cool, this is what we're going to do. We're going to shoot a lot of threes. We're going to run really fast. And they can get a top 2 or 3 seed in the West. But once they actually play a team who basically does what they do but better, and the Warriors will probably lose to them, and then maybe they try and add a piece or two next year. Like, I can see them in a year or two being the number 1 team in the West, just because eventually Draymond Green's not going to be that guy, and their defense isn't going to be as good in the Warriors, so maybe the Rockets can overtake them at that point. But for this year, yeah, I can absolutely see them being like a top 2 or 3 seed and making it to the Western Finals.
I'll say they win a series, but don't really go any farther than that. I think they're kind of following that Suns rule. The Suns never really propelled past the second round of the playoffs,
sure,
even though they were the top 1, 2, 3 seed all those years, because what they do in the regular season just doesn't really carry over to the playoffs. You're not going to shoot 50 million three-pointers and make them all like you do in the regular season. You have to play defense. The game slows down into more of a half-court offense, which is not what the Rockets are trying to do.
Right.
So, I mean, they'll probably win a series. Russell Westbrook's still going to be there. I think they're probably a better team in the half-court than Houston is. James Harden's doing great with this distributor role, but come playoff time, is that really going to still be there? Who says he's not just going to want to be that guy and score 50 every game and take 40 shots? I mean, I don't know that. So,
well, he could do that because you also, like kind of with the Westbrook thing, right? The thing we've seen with Westbrook, because I've watched some of the games on YouTube after the fact, like watching kind of the highlights of the game, and what I've seen with Westbrook, kind of the same thing with Harden is like they'll get their assists, but especially with Westbrook, he'll get his assists early in the game, right? He'll get Steven Adams, he'll get Sabonis, they'll get all them kind of involved, and then by about second quarter, third quarter in, that's when he's like, okay, cool, it's my time. And if you do that, that helps a lot more because you're getting the people involved and you're getting the big men to actually feel involved. And something like that with Harden, he can do that same thing. He can get someone like Nene involved. He can get somebody like Capella. He can get someone like Trevor Ariza involved. And then all of a sudden he's like, all right, cool, it's my time. I'm going to shoot right now. But right now they're the third seed in the West, right? Which would mean they would play the Jazz. Cool, they can beat the Jazz. The top four, it's basically Warriors, Spurs, Rockets, Clippers. And I can see them beating the Clippers, but I can't see them beating the Spurs or Suns, or the Spurs or Warriors. So I'm with you. Win a first-round series. Depending on who they get in the second round, they might be able to beat them. But once they get to the Western Finals, I don't see them beating either team that they face.
Yeah, I don't either. But, I mean, they're definitely turning around. They've been a lot better. I like this new role from Harden. I think it's actually a good thing. He's been one of those players that I've kind of bashed the last couple of years. Reminds me a lot of Dwight Howard, Carmelo Anthony, one of those guys that's just really never going to win a championship because there's so much about me. He's kind of changing it a little bit, but I still feel the same way. But
he's someone. Oh, sorry. No, I was just saying that he's someone who, back when he was in in Oklahoma City, he would play that kind of point guard role coming off the bench. And we've seen with Mike D'Antoni, be it Steve Nash, Steve Nash is one of the best point guards of all time, but he was a lot better when he was with Mike D'Antoni than he was before him or even after him. And even someone like a Jeremy Lin or even someone like a Raymond Felton out of New York. Like, he always gets his point guards to play at another level. Like, Harden, like he wasn't doing this, 7.5 assists last year, now basically 12 assists this year. So he's taken that to another level this year with D'Antoni. Now that helps with, the extra possessions and everything else that happens. But, like I said, he's been elevated by D'Antoni because D'Antoni with point guards is always something that makes the stats look a little bit better.
I mean, I guess so. I would have loved to have seen James Harden still in the Thunder, though.
Oh, dude, that team?
I think if they would have kept Westbrook, Durant, and Harden, they'd be better than the Warriors.
Yeah.
They would have won a championship by now. They almost did it when they lost to the
Miami.
Heat when LeBron won his first championship.
Right. Yeah, no, that team...
They would have won rings by now.
Probably, because he's thinking that Western Conference, because the East was always going to be LeBron, but in the Western Conference, they basically just had to face San Antonio. And yeah, San Antonio was really good at that point, but, those three offensively and defensively with Russell Westbrook, he can play defense, and I think Durant has like a 7'6" wingspan. So, that just allows you to play defense, and you can find defense from other people. The Steven Adams trade was what got them from the Harden stuff, so they wouldn't have had him. But, yeah, they could have found some defensive players to move around with that. And, God, those three, like, all four of those, like, even they had Jeff Green at one time. Like, this people that they had back in 2011, 2012, that team was just ridiculously stacked.
Yeah, it would have been nice to see, but obviously we're not going to have to worry about that anymore because it won't happen. These guys are all on different teams now. So
yeah, they're all.
We'll take our last break of the show. After the break, we'll be talking about what's trending and a couple of great things. I want to talk about a certain player that's tearing it up in high school, but did something yesterday that I think is kind of already building this young kid's ego, and I think it's a bad thing for him, and we'll have to see what happens. But anyways, we'll take our break. We'll talk about that stuff after the break at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
So we will end the show with what is trending. What's trending? A lot of basketball news, actually. Anthony are kind of on different sides of the fence with this one.
Right.
But anyways, so there's this team, high school basketball team in Southern California, Chino Hills High School. They're absolutely fantastic. They're like probably one of the top 2 or 3 high school basketball teams in the nation. They're fantastic. If you are familiar with UCLA right now, they're number 2 in the nation in basketball. They're undefeated. They have a freshman named Lonzo Ball. He's tearing it up. He's averaging like 15 points, 8 assists, almost 5 boards. Kind of like Jason Kidd-esque. And he kind of looks like him, too. Reminds me of him. I think that's probably his best pro comparison. He's going to be a lottery pick if he comes out this year, which he probably should.
Yeah.
So he's going to be fantastic. But it's not just Lonzo Ball. He has brothers playing for this Chino Hill team. There's a senior named LaMelo Ball. Last month, he only put up 128 points on a 2-game span. So he literally put up 65 points. The next night, put up 63. And then there's a younger brother, a sophomore, named LaMelo Ball. He's maybe even the best one of the 3, which could be kind of scary. Like, we're going to have, within 4 or 5 years, 3 of these guys in the NBA that could just be tearing it up, and they're all related. Like, I would have loved to have these 3 play, like, 3-on-3 on, like, the Venice Beach or whatever against anyone. They would just literally run the whole court.
Yeah, exactly.
So these kids are absolutely tearing it up. And then LaMelo Ball and LaMelo Ball are still in high school right now for Chino Hills. They're undefeated, 13-0. That's all great. But something that he did, LaMelo, I'm going to say, this is the younger one, the point guard. Something he did in a game most recently kind of has me just not really a fan of it. So literally, he did this earlier in the season as well. He did not pull up from half court, but he pulled up closer to the half court line than the 3-point line to start a game. He obviously made the shot. So in their most recent game, this is on, you can see it on YouTube. Literally the tip-off, he gets the opening tip-off. He points down at the half court line and pulls up from half court to start the game, and he makes it. So that's great. He pulls up from half court and he makes it. But to me, this is just terrible. If I was the coach, I would sit him down the rest of the game. This is not what I'm here to do. We're not here to get on YouTube. We're not here to get on SportsCenter. We're not here to watch LaMelo Ball High School. We're here to win games for Chino Hills, and you're just pulling up at half court. I realize he made it and all. What happens if he does that? Oh, look at me! I'm gonna pull up, and then he airballs. That would have been the greatest thing to me. Come on, dude, are you serious?
All right, here's the thing. I get it. I understand that there's a limit to your celebration and stuff like that, and maybe you should not exactly do that every single time because it's not going to work every single time. That's fine. Me personally, I love this. I love this so much. I'm the dude who grew up loving the University of Miami Hurricanes football team. So you can't tell me anything about sportsmanship. I don't care about that. I want more of this, please. Shoot from 3/4 of court. Shoot as soon as you get the ball, just over the head, do whatever you want to because it's sports. And sports is fun. Have some fun. Yes, I understand that it sets a bad precedent. Yes, I understand that he's going to miss that a lot more than he makes it. A couple things also with it. Okay, his older brother, Lonzo Ball, is a freshman over in UCLA, and he's killing it. He's the youngest of the brothers, yeah?
Yes. Well, at least that are of the 3 that are tearing it up.
Right. He's the youngest of them. Okay, so your older brother's over in UCLA, killing it. Probably be a top 2-3 pick.
Yeah, LaMelo is a senior who's already committed to UCLA, so he'll be there next year. And LaMelo is a sophomore who's already committed to UCLA, so he'll be there in 3 years.
All right, so you're the youngest brother. Your 2 older brothers are basically going to go to UCLA. You want to get some shine. So what are you going to do? I'm going to shoot from half court and get my da-da-da on, right? I'm going to want to get on SportsCenter. Now, maybe that's not the best motivation, and that's fine. Maybe you should want to play for the love of the game and play for teammates. That's totally fine. Also, you said, it'll inflate his ego. Okay. Also, his ego is probably sufficiently inflated by now because he is one of the best players on the team, and he did this before, and it worked. So if it works, you can do it again. Now, if you miss 2 in a row, then maybe you stop it. And also, the other thing, this is basically just the next evolution of the Steph Curry, no? Because Steph Curry likes to shoot from way far away, so now he's just kind of taking it further back.
Trust me, I get it. It seems like this kid really doesn't even care. Like, he's only about him. I just don't like the cockiness. Like, what happens when this kid's going to run into someone who is literally equally as good as him? He's not going to be doing this in college.
Oh, he might do this in college.
If he does it in college, I think that, okay, imagine Steph Curry doing this. How would it be taken by us?
Do you remember Steph Curry in college? He was doing stuff like, maybe not half court, but he was doing stuff like that in college.
Taking the opening tip-off, pointing at the half-court line, like, look, I'm going to pull up right here and doing it. Like, that would be taken so negatively, but it's okay for this kid to do it. I just don't get it.
A couple things. Number one, how old is he? It's like 15. He's 15. Come on now. Like, what did you do at 15? You did dumb stuff when you were 15 years old.
I wasn't pulling up from the half-court line in a high school game.
You weren't good enough to pull up from half-court and shoot from there.
Even if I was good enough, I wouldn't be doing it because I have a little more respect for the game and my opponents than to do that.
I'm not going to yell at somebody for having fun on a basketball court in a high school game.
I'm not yelling at him. I'm not saying,
yelling,
okay,
but I mean,
if you're going to do this literally the start of the fourth quarter when you're up by 40,
right?
I'd maybe understand it a little more.
That's more disrespect because you're just like stunting on somebody, say like, oh, we're up by 40, look what I can do now.
This is worse. You're stunting on him from the opening tip-off. Like, I don't literally take nothing you're doing seriously for the next 40, I don't even know how long they play in high school, for the next 40 minutes. So I'm just going to do this now. Like,
again,
that is
sophomore in high school, so 14, 15 years. I'm not going to get mad at someone who's 15 years old for doing something immature. I do immature stuff, and I'm 27 years old. Imagine what I did at 15 years old. Like, I'm not going to yell at somebody because they do something like this when they're that talented. That's the other thing. With the NFL, total team game. With baseball, you got to kind of rely on other people if you want to win the game. Like, you can go 4 for 4 with 4 home runs. You can still lose 5 to 4 for their solo home runs. Soccer, same thing, team sport. Everything else, hockey, team sport. Basketball, it's a team sport, but if you're the best player on the court, you can swing the balance of it, a la LeBron, a la Durant, people like that. You swing the power of how you do. And he's obviously really, really talented. And you talked about if he did this, you're going to bench him. Okay, cool. That's all nice and great. They're undefeated. Now if they lose a game, now what? You're going to put him back in the next game because that's kind of how talent works.
I just kind of hate the image it sets. It's almost like we're teaching these kids to, like, just show off and be all about them. And it's like, that's not really... Like, imagine if this kid were to play for Greg Popovich and do that.
Oh, Popovich? Oh, yeah,
like,
yeah.
This guy wouldn't see the light of day for the next month. You know what I mean? It's like, we're kind of just, like, saying it's okay and teaching this kid, like, oh, yeah, just go do whatever the heck you want. We're already going to win anyway. Like, just do whatever you want. I don't even care. Like, I just hate that image being set.
You understand we also have these, like, national signing days where we devote a full couple of days for people who go from high school to college, and we give them the whole platform. Like, that's an ego boost too.
But nothing like this. We've had that for the last over decade now.
I understand.
It really started when LeBron came out of high school.
Right.
They started showing high school games, and I get that. I'm okay with that. Like, I enjoy going to these high school games in Sacramento. For the last few years, I've been going to the high school basketball championships. They have them here in Sacramento, so the NorCals and then the North versus South for the state. It's all great. It's fun. It's interesting. You get to see some high school players like Aaron Gordon, who plays for the Magic. I saw him play in high school in Sacramento 3 years in a row for his sophomore, junior, and senior year. So it's nice to see people like that, like Kawhi Leonard. I saw him in high school. So it's great to see things like that. But it's like they were not doing literally nothing like this. You know what I mean? It's like we're kind of just building these kids' egos, and I'm not a fan of it. But
I'm with you. Like, it's totally like a look at me kind of thing. I'm not denying that it's not a look at me thing. I just don't care. Like, that's different. Like, I totally understand that it's that. Also, I think it's a couple things. A, this 15 years old kind of thing. That part, helps with that kind of stuff like that. Because, if he's in college, he might not do it. And in the pros, he's not going to do that. And also the fact of, it's not something to where, like, if he does it, like, once in the game, okay, fine. And if it's in the start of the game, fine. Now, if he does it like 4, 5, 6 times in a game and, he's missing like 3 of them, okay, that's a bad time. Like, that's a bad look. But one time, it's fine.
I just hate the cockiness of it. But anyways, moving on, another basketball story. The NBA, most recently, has adopted, I don't know what you want to call it, like a 24-hour hotline, chat line, whatever you want to call it, for players to literally call up and talk bad about referees. They can say anything they want on there, basically vent their emotions to say, I feel like at 8:17 left in the third quarter, I got a foul called on me that should have not been a foul. I said one thing and then I got a technical which shouldn't have been a technical. Whatever you want to basically just vent out to the NBA about certain officials, how it got treated badly. You could even do like positive things, like he really had a great game, which I don't think will happen very often. Maybe KD will do that. He did say the other night about the final play in the Warriors and the Cavs game, questionable call on whether it was a foul or not. Kevin Durant really supported the officials, saying like they're trying to do their job. They do a great thing for us. I thought it was a foul, but I'm not going to go here and bash them. So that would be great. But I don't think anyone's going to call up. Really, he had a great game last night. He was a great official. Like, that's not going to happen. This is going to be just literally bash the officials 24/7. And you might as well call this the DeMarcus Cousins and Draymond Green hotline. Because I think these are going to be the two guys who are most often going to use this.
Oh, no, yeah. So I'm looking it up right now, like technical fouls right now. DeMarcus leads it with 9. Westbrook's got 8. John Wall's got 8. You got 7 for Draymond. You got DeAndre who's got 7. Like, they're going to run this out because all it's going to be is basically, we've seen post-game interviews with DeMarcus basically yelling about how it always happens with him, how he's always getting the bad calls and everything else like that. He's going to be on there just basically after every single game that they lose. Because I don't think he's going to do it after a win if it's like a kind of blowout win. But if it's like a close loss and there was a bad call, straight, just like he has it on speed dial. Like, oh, that's number 4. Cool, let's go. And I get it why Adam Silver does it because he's the one that implemented the 2-minute, kind of report or whatever, talking about how with the refs and what they did and if they blew a call or not. So he's the one kind of like really trying to like usher in transparency with the referees. And I get it on a certain level, but it also kind of just puts on Front Street what they do wrong. And with this, same thing. Like, I understand they're not going to do it, but how much would you legitimately pay to have the audio of DeMarcus one day just basically going off on the referee? Just like that good, like 5-minute voicemail where he just gets on the phone and he's just like, these mother, just like totally going off. There's these mother bleeping people, these bleep them, bleep this, bleep, 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 bleep. Like, oh my God, I would pay like $59.99 for that. Like, it would be great.
It'd be fantastic to hear one time and kind of laugh about it. But for me, this is kind of silly. Like, it seems like the NBA are kind of not having the support of their referees. Like, how is this going to make their job any easier? All you're going to do is have people complain about them left and right. The NBA is going to say, oh, we've had like 10 complaints this month about this guy, 8 about this guy. Like, call them in saying, oh, how come this happened? Like, reviewing it. These are human beings. There's going to be mistakes. There's mistakes in refereeing and officiating in literally every sport. You're not going to eliminate it. How is this going to help eliminate it? It doesn't. I think
it's not going to help
just
eliminate
kind of a mode for players to like vent their frustration, and that's all they're going to do. And I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. Like, I just think it's kind of silly. Like, I don't know. I just think it's really silly.
Well, here's like, I do think there is a positive in this, right? Because the one thing we've always seen with just sports in general is after the game they rip the refs, right? And they have the thing basically where if you do that, then you get fined, right? And I get that because you can't basically have a mutiny every single time, basically talking about the refs and just calling them out by name. Fine, I get that. This, it's not going to change them being mad at the refs, but maybe they're hoping that this basically takes it from a point where after the game they yell at the refs in a press conference to, maybe they say something every now and then, but this is basically their main kind of venting place, right? This is the thing where this is where they yell at the refs, and at least it's like in a centralized thing where, they're not going to release the tapes, they're not going to do anything, and this is like basically their like, stress ball. This is their therapist. This is their thing to where it's basically just like, if you got a problem, cool, and we'll take this into consideration because we obviously have all the voicemails of you saying all these things like that, and we kind of take it from there, and it doesn't have to be a public forum to where like, okay, we're going to call out referee, like I don't know any of the referees' names. I know Ed Malloy because there was like a famous call one time where play-by-play guy just yells at him and it's funny. But, if they have a bunch of complaints about Ed Malloy, then all of a sudden, they can be like, okay, cool. And then they kind of go from there, and it's at least a centralized kind of thing, right? It's kind of all in one area, and they can kind of take it from there. And if it's on those things, it's not going to be public, and it can be kind of not manipulated, but like managed, right? It could be something to where they have the stats on it, and it's only them that have it, and doesn't get out of control with like Twitter and everything else basically reacting to it.
I don't know. I just think it's kind of silly. And then really quickly before we end the show,
Yeah.
It seems like Tony Romo will not be playing Sunday against the Eagles. Jerry Jones came out and said he does not expect Romo to be playing this Sunday. Surprised?
No, because they just don't want a controversy for the quarterbacks, right? Like, let's say Tony Romo goes in and throws for like 4 touchdown passes, throws for 350 yards. We're just going to lose our minds as a collective, fan base. Like, not even fan base for the Cowboys, the fan base for the NFL would be like, he should start. And as much as Jerry Jones likes to stoke that fire, he's probably just like, look, just if we need to play you in the playoffs, we'll play you. But just like, I really don't need any of that headache right now. Just like sit down and we'll have Mark Sanchez come in and, we'll figure it out if we have to play in the playoffs, but they don't want to have any extra drama going into the playoffs.
I would have thought he would at least play for maybe a quarter, maybe a half. You're going to try and trade him next year. You have to give people some sort of a reason to think that he can still play. He hasn't played in over 2 years now if he doesn't play on Sunday.
Sure.
No one, with the exception of maybe Jerry Jones, thinks that Tony Romo should be the starting quarterback for Dallas right now.
Right.
So it's not like he's going to go in there, light it up, and then we have a controversy. Oh, is it Dak or is it Tony Romo? So I would have said at least play him like a quarter, maybe a half. Maybe he does pretty good. That gives teams and GMs that think they're maybe just a quarterback away, trade some draft picks and say, okay, Romo could be our guy for the next year or two, maybe propel us towards kind of like that Peyton Manning role when he went to Denver. So I'll be surprised they would at least play him just to show people that he can still play a little bit.
Yeah, but they just gave like $70 million to Brock Osweiler for like 2 games or something like that. Like, they'll give money to people no matter what. They'll give a bunch of money to a quarterback if they think they're any level of good. And Romo, yeah, maybe you don't see him for a while, but they'll roll the dice on him and see what he's been doing. And also, you don't want to injure the dude, right? Like, if he comes in for a half, separates his shoulder again, then his trade value is just totally gone. Like, that's totally out of the window. So, don't play him. Don't worry about it. If we got to trade him, we'll trade him. If we got to play him in the playoffs, we'll play him. But we're not trying to basically get anybody hurt because we saw Dak Prescott get hit a couple of times. Saw Ezekiel Elliott get hurt a little, but like he got hit a couple of times hard, and even Smith, the lineman, the left tackle, looked like he got hurt a little bit. So they're probably just like, look, we're just gonna like play Sanchez. If he gets hurt, fine, and we're just kind of go from there with the backups.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised, but nevertheless, Jason Garrett is the coach. Did not play him against Detroit on Monday. A little surprised about that too, but. Anyways, that's going to end our show for today. Had a great episode. Talked a lot of great things. My name is Ben.
And I'm Anthony.
And we will be back tomorrow to talk more about sports right here at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Have a good day, and we'll see you later.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.